Hi, Vassy here from Now Spinning Magazine, and this video is a special feature, if you like, and it goes under the title of "Do you remember where you were when you first heard the first Van Halen album?" Now, I'm asking this question because I can remember. It's a bit like asking people where you were when people first landed on the moon. There are certain things, certain seismic events, and I'm talking about in music now, that have such an effect that you remember exactly where you were. Now, I'd be interested to know for younger viewers, especially in the era that we are now, where you can go onto YouTube and you can find young kids playing Eruption by Eddie Van Halen, left, right and centre. Does the name Eddie Van Halen mean the same? Does the first Van Halen album still have that effect? I can't answer that question, so I should look forward to seeing what you say in the comments, and please subscribe if you haven't already. So this video is about my experience and what it did to me. It's 1978. In the UK, punk has really arrived. It started to filter through in 1977, but in 1978, it's here. The New Musical Express is doing its best to literally bludgeon rock music and heavy metal and prog into the ground, saying it's boring old farts and it's dinosaur music. But for me, I was only 19. I got into music. I'd only seen my first band in 1974, 4 years earlier, when I saw Deep Purple. So to me, it was brand new music. I was just getting into rock music, and now something's telling me that it's all over. But of course, it wasn't. Sounds and, of course, Melody Maker and word of mouth and the kids on the street and the venues were saying that this was not the case. We might have had bands like the Stranglers and Blondie making headway, but in the rock charts, Long Live Rock and Roll was coming out by Rainbow. You know, we were hearing about these exotic bands from Canada and America, Styx. The Scorpions had released Tokyo Tapes, UFO were waving the flag for melodic rock with Obsession. There was a lot of stuff going on. And, you know, I was a guitarist trying to learn my craft and maybe join a band one day, as those of you who stay around long enough to see me at the end of these videos. And, you know, and Gilmour, Iommi, Jeff Beck, Richie Blackmore, Ronnie Montrose, you know, and all that, these were my heroes. And also coming around in 1978 was Black Sabbath. And they were kind of, I love Technical Ecstasy, as you know, those of you who've seen that video. Never Say Die, I only knew the single really, which kind of, they ended up on top of the pops with that. But when they were coming around to the Birmingham Odeons, I thought, let's get some tickets. And I remember it was very interesting to me, being so interested in music, who is the support band? And I remember seeing it was a band called Van Halen or something. Never heard of them. I thought, they're obviously not English. I've never heard of them before. I just thought, oh, it's a shame that Black Sabbath, being a band that they are, couldn't have picked a bigger name to support them. So, so I just thought nothing of it. And then it could have been 1 or 2 weeks before the gig. And we used to go to Bogart's in Birmingham, or sometimes the Costermonger. And my friends took turn in kind of driving us to Birmingham to go to these rock clubs even. And it was before I was driving, so it was always someone, my mate Steve or Brian, who did this. And it was Brian Ashford who picked us up this night to take us into town. And we got in the car, and everybody always put a tape on or something to listen to, and we just chatted about what was going on in life. And this particular time, Brian said, I bought the album by that band Van Halen who were supporting Sabbath, you know, when we go and see them. He said, you just got to hear this. I'm going, yeah, you know, cut it on. I thought, yeah, it'd be good to hear what I'm going to see. And he put it on and he turned up the volume. And we were chatting away, and then that siren comes in. Ooh, and then it just, that bass drum and the hi-hat, and then the riff to Running with the Devil. And immediately I knew I had heard what a rock guitar should sound like. In my mind, I had an idea of what a hard rock, heavy metal guitar sounded like. You know, it was somewhere between Richie Blackmore and Ronnie Montrose or whatever. And there it was. This riff with the right amount of ambience and reverb just sounded like it was a solid thing, but with space for the bass and drums to be around it. And then the vocals come in. That kind of banshee wail of attitude and asserting itself that this was going to be very different. You know, Got No Love That Call Real, is Running with the Devil. The harmonies in rock music like that. And as we drove, we were only just about into the song. Instead of everyone talking about what they're doing at work and everything else, silence. Everybody was just listening to this new band. And then we get to beyond the second chorus and the first solo. And that guitar sound for a guitar solo. I didn't know that Ted Templeman was producer at this point. I just knew that this was the best guitar sound I'd ever heard. And being a budding guitarist, I thought, I could do that. That sounds achievable. And it's just a fantastic opening track. But of course, what happened next, for the next couple of minutes, changed the world. And the track that came up was Eruption. And I might have been thinking, I can do that. I can't do that. What happened next? We'd always heard, Richie Blackmore doing the solo bit in You Fall No One, or you know, people did these things live. Iommi did, this guitar solo shredding exercises, but on a record, on a studio album, and like this, and then using the tremolo arm like that. It was just amazing. It was so exciting. It was so exciting, that part in Eruption where you think it's ended and then it comes back, and then it's just incredible. And I was completely blown away. And then how do they follow that? They follow it with You Really Got Me, which is probably the birth of heavy metal, the birth of heavy rock. That riff, You Really Got Me by the Kinks. And they take that riff and they grab it by the neck and they stamp Van Halen all over it, and it becomes their song. The definitive version of You Really Got Me by the Kinks is that. And it just, the segues in rock discos across the land, the amount of people that started Eruption, You Really Got Me. It was just perfect. And then they go into Ain't Talking About Love, which has got that fantastic riff, and again, but that bit of reverb that Ted Templeman adds to it. I've been to the edge, I've lost a lot of friends there, as Roth sings. It just fits with like a movie, like a film, like the soundtrack to being young and youthful and full of hope and full of angst and full of, the world's against me, but I'm going to break through. It was all in that song. And there was no time to catch your breath. A bit like the first Montrose album, there was no time to catch your breath, because coming up straight after that was I'm the One, and that really breakneck riff that starts it again. The solos, they sounded so live. The way he fitted in so many notes and the tremolo arm weaving in amongst it, it was like nothing else. It must have been like listening to Hendrix, 10 years before, which I was too young to do. But here I was, in amongst the birth of something incredibly exciting. And then beyond that, you've got side two. Now, side two switches everything. The first switches everything over. You've gone from this is heavy metal. This is a brand new. It feels like a brand new template to rock music. Instead of it all being coming from the UK, Britain, the Holy Trinity of Sabbath, Zeppelin, and Purple, and all the other bands that come out of that. It's now coming straight back at us from America. America, had a go with Mountain and Montrose, but Britain just kept throwing rock bands, Judas Priest, UFO out there. But now the compass has changed around, and Van Halen are coming straight back at us. And my God, this is like just swathes of bands who are thinking we'll be okay are no longer okay. You know, punk has now put a pimple in my mind because rock is back. These guys were still wearing flares and platforms. I hadn't seen the album cover at this point, but they were. But side 2 opens with melody, almost pop sensibilities in some respect, with Jamie's crying, with the backing vocals with Michael Anthony. You know, it's such a key component to the band's sound. And again, the drums, you know, the tom-tom sound and everything, it's just absolutely fantastic. And then, of course, as I said, in the UK, punk is everywhere. A song appears called Atomic Punk. And this is, if we're going to do punk, we're not going to have a few trebly guitars, we're going to have something like Atomic Punk. It just comes boom, straight at you. And now this is a guy that sounds like he's a punk from the streets because it's rock. So it's absolutely fantastic. And Feel Your Love Tonight was, again, great riff, kind of more of a mid-tempo rock and roll song, but it really, really worked. And Feel Your Love Tonight, Little Dreamer, another one that fits in so well with Jamie's Crying. Another, again, almost pop rock song, a kind of the seeds of what was going to come with Van Halen, the fact that they were not going to stay within a bucket-marked rock music, a silo-marked, you know, this is where we live. They were going to push down the walls and they were to come out and go, pop charts? Yep, we're going for that. Rock charts? Yep, it count us in. Party time? Yep, that's us. Van Halen were going to conquer the world and change rock music, and everyone was going to want someone like Eddie Van Halen in their band, which I imagine at some point he might have thought, what have I done? Then we have Ice Cream Man, which is huge in America. From all the stuff I've done when we did the Dave Lee Roth video, people love that. In the UK, I didn't really know many people who liked that track as much as everything else. In fact, for me, it was always the one where I felt kind of, I might just lift the needle and just plop it forwards. I wouldn't do that now, but then it was kind of, but it was, I think it was, we just weren't used to it. The kind of humour in rock music. Britain didn't do humour in rock music really at that point. And then we end up with a track called On Fire, which ended up being one of my favourites because it was just in your face. You know, just to, you know, it's like just before I leave, I'm going to leave a calling card that says, we are the future of hard rock and rock and roll, and we're coming for you. Absolutely brilliant. So, having heard that, Brian just left it roll on again, and we heard it twice. And on the way back, we heard it again. And the next day, I went straight out and bought it. And I just thought, it just looked fantastic, doesn't it? It just looks fantastic. Eddie Van Halen wearing actually a quite casual, almost Marks and Spencer shirt, stripy shirt, but his facial expression, the way he's holding a guitar, British rock bands didn't pose like this. And David Roth, again, another quite casual shirt at that time, but he looks really cool, doesn't he? It doesn't look like, it doesn't, you know, we've only got Plant and Gillan and Ozzy, really, our front men, Paul Rodgers, but this looks very different. You know, and these two guys, Michael Anthony, you know, and, you know, the drums, it's all mysterious. And then on the back, they put a picture of David Lee Roth, leather flares, platform shoes in 1978. And that pose, who does that? And I love the way that the track titles aren't in order, as if like, yeah, these songs are on here, you know, find them yourself. It's absolutely fine. Of course, so we went to see Black Sabbath. And normally, at most gigs, the bar is doing good business before the main band comes on, because I personally always went to see the support band because I wanted to see what they were like, and I just wanted to absorb as much music as possible. But a lot of my friends went to the bar. In this gig, nobody was in the bar. Everybody sat down to watch this band, no internet, they weren't on the radio. They'd have a bit of press in the, you know, and sounds, Melody Maker, Not in Enemy, word of mouth through the rock clubs, pubs, on the buses, on the trains, in cars. Have you heard of Van Halen? Have you heard this band Van Halen? It was packed. Van Halen came on and they played that album and I'd never seen anything like it. Not only did they play that music, they were a performance, they were entertainment, they were like a film, they were like a cartoon, they were just like a fantasy movie put together with the best directors, everything. They just connected. I mean, of course, now on YouTube you can see videos from this period of them doing Running with the Devil and stuff, but I hadn't seen anything like that. This is what we saw first. And Lee Roth, with his gymnastics and his in-between banter, you know, I remember where I was trying to put the band together at the time, and my mate Steve said, if you ever get a band together, you need a vocalist like that. And I was thinking, they need a guitarist like that as well. They were incredible, and they just... So when Sabbath came on, unfortunately, there was nothing. They had nothing to pull out of their magic hat that was going to help. All of a sudden, everything, as I said, had altered. Everything I thought I knew had changed. Of course, throughout the 80s, every band of the glam metal period, melodic rock, everybody seemed to have an Eddie Van Halen clone. And, you know, and many of them were excellent, but they weren't Eddie Van Halen. He was the first one through the gate. He developed that sound, and he had that sound. He didn't have to seem to try that hard. When you look at albums like Mean Street and stuff, and the tracks like that, he just had complete command of it. Everyone else seemed to be trying harder than he was, because he didn't have to try, did he? You know, what he did was fantastic. So that was the effect. That was how I remember it, and it was a marker in time. You know, as I said, when I did my Montrose album review a few weeks ago, that was a marker in time, but this was a bigger one. I think this is the first time we had someone do something different with electric guitar, probably since Hendrix. I can say that now. At the time I would have said, nah, it's Blackmore or Page or whatever, but I with the lens of time, I can see these points now far more clearly. So it would be interesting to know what you think of the first Van Halen album. You know, it still sounds timeless, doesn't it? You know, Ted Templeman, I talk about him loads now, I seem to at the moment, but as a producer, he, you know, as far as I know, he gave them the first Montrose album and said, we're going to do this, but we're going to do it better. And he certainly, well, saying do it better, they're different things, but this is a classic, timeless rock album, and every home should have a copy. And if you've seen the kids on YouTube do the Eruption solo, great, you know, because, you know, it is no mean feat to do that. But listen to the first Van Halen album, listen to Eddie Van Halen do that, and imagine what it was like hearing that for the first time, and knowing that before that point, that style of guitar did not exist. So thank you for watching, thank you for subscribing, thank you for ringing that little bell, thank you for visiting the website and the Facebook group, and thank you ever so much for being with me. We've just passed 2,000 subscribers at the time of filming this, so I'm absolutely over the moon, and I shall see you on my next video.